Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Andy Schiffer, joined by Dr. Stuart Pym with Saving Nature, and I'm so glad you could join us tonight for what promises to be a truly inspiring conversation. At Saving Nature, our mission is to reconnect the wild. We restore fragmented ecosystems and create wildlife corridors in some of the most threatened places on Earth. And tonight we're focusing on one of the most extraordinary regions we work in, Colombia's Western Andes. This is a place of staggering biodiversity, home to thousands of species found nowhere else in the world. It's also a landscape under immense pressure from deforestation and climate change, but thanks to bold leadership, science-driven action, and deep collaboration with local communities, real progress is being made. Our guest this evening is someone who has dedicated his life to that mission. Dr. Luis Mazariegos is the founder of Fundación Bioconservancy and our partner in Colombia. He has helped rediscover rare species, establish the 7,000-acre Mesenia-Paramillo Nature Reserve, and built a model of conservation that protects species while supporting the local people who live in the area. Luis's story is one of passion, persistence, and discovery, and I know you'll leave tonight both informed and inspired. So let's dive in. Luis, thank you for joining us. To start, can you tell us what makes Colombia and the Western Andes so special?
If you look at, reptiles, frogs, if you look at butterflies, Colombia really, to me, if we can study what's here, I'm sure Colombia is going to be number one in every one of those. Because what happens is we have yet to study many of these. So what called my attention, especially the cloud forest, is this high level of humidity. What it produces is an amazing amount, especially of plant life, and that also ends up impacting the number of species that you have. I mean, if you look at a cloud forest, the trees are just covered with mosses, with bromeliads, with orchids. It's incredible. The probably the mass of leaves is multiplied by probably 10, 20, 30 times because of all that other plant life that's on the branches of a cloud forest.
What's extraordinary about this spot, everyone, is the the field station is on the eastern side of the ridge. But as you climb up behind the field station, you get to the ridge of the Western Andes. And as you get there, just before you get here, suddenly you get this incredible sort of mist and warm, sort of Pacific air that's blowing in, and it's laden with moisture, and the trees are, got covered in ferns and dripping in orchids and things. It's really such an extraordinary place.
Yeah, the plants are just incredible. I mean, as an example, one expedition with Thomas Croat from the Missouri Botanical Garden looking for anthuriums and epidendrums yielded, over 200 species just in looking only at the trails. Out of those 200 species, half of them, Thomas claims, are new to science. So that just gives you an idea of the amount of flora that's still to be discovered in such areas.
It's unbelievable. And on the point of discoveries, your reserve has been the site of incredible discoveries from the Olanguito to new orchids and frogs. What discoveries have most surprised you? And how do moments like that remind you of the importance of protecting these places?
Yeah, well, the Olenguito was something incredible because in the year 2011, one of our park rangers found a baby Olenguito that had fallen from a bromeliad, which actually was the nest. And he photographed the cub. He also photographed the mother. And when I saw the pictures, I said, "Wow, this animal just looks strange. This may be a new
The one
species."
on the right, yeah.
But then they told me, like, "Oh, no, no, this is a kinkayu." And I said, "Well, what a strange kinkayu," but I didn't pay much attention. In 2013, Roland Case, studying skins at the Smithsonian Museum, found that actually there was an olingo and the olingito. So actually, not even with a live animal, he described a new species from museum skins. Once I saw that paper, I sent him the photographs of the olingito, and he was like, "Yes, that's the Olinguito. Where did you find it?" And so we went through this whole thing, and I'm like, I was going crazy because it's like we had a new species in our hands, and we didn't even know. That just gave me an idea that this place definitely was teeming with new species. From there on, we started looking, for example, amphibians, and and sure enough, very close to that, we discovered our first poison dart frog there, and that was followed by other frogs. And actually, I'm saying we probably have like 12 frogs new to science, and it's a process to describe all of these. I think right now we have three described ones and two that are going to be soon be published, which is going to be a frog, a raebo, and also a pristimantis. So that gives you an idea. Also, we started looking at lizards, and with lizards, we also found like 8 lizards new to science, of which 4 have been described. Then we started looking. I started getting interested in the what's called the Darwin wasps. These are insect parasitic wasps, and I brought some experts from Brazil, and actually, so far, over 50 new species have been described and one new genera. Then I got into the spider hunting wasps. Again, the same story, close to 50 species. There's 2 genera new to science that we're in the process of describing over a dozen species. Also, fireflies. We have 54 species of fireflies, of which 12 are going to be new to science with 5 new genera. And one that really got me excited was one day there was this Brazilian entomologist that was visiting us from Manaus, from the INPA Institute. And he told me, "Hey, have you seen maybe one of those katydids with spines?" And I said, "I just saw one. It's out there. Let me bring it to you." It was dead. I brought it to him. He took the photo, sent it to Brazil. 5 minutes later, the expert says, "This is a new genus." So we started looking for this katydid, found 3 males, missing the female. One day I opened the door in my cabin. There's the female laying right in front of my porch. Took it, described it, and we named it as Muscospina neblina, in honor of the mosses and the spines on the katydid, and also the neblina, meaning the fog or the cloud forest. So that to me, it's incredibly exciting how easy to me I think it is that you can be walking and finding new species left and right. Even
So
also
if I could elaborate a little bit on the
yeah.
story about the Alligator.
Hmm.
Roland Kayes, I first met Roland when he was a graduate student at the University of Tennessee. He wasn't one of my graduate students, but he was a graduate student there. And then in the fullness of time, he came to the North Carolina State Museum, which is just down the road here from Duke. And so there they are wandering through the Smithsonian, and they look at a bunch of skins, and there's an animal called the olingo, and this is just a sort of a small version of the olingo, right? But
Hmm.
but that means it was known from stuffed specimens in the museum. So as you heard, as soon as we heard that, we thought, hey, Louise, you probably got one of these. And as Louise has just explained, the answer is yeah, it's alive and well and wandering around the field station there. I mean, as Louise has explained, this is an incredible place for species. The sad thing is that it's also been an area that's been inaccessible for many years because of local violence in Colombia. So it's only really been in the last decade or two that people have been able to go in and explore. Anyway, I'm not going to steal Louise's thunder, but I really share his incredibly excitement that you turn around and there's a new species. It's just like that. Everybody goes there and finds something new.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very contagious to get excited, Luis and Stuart, when I hear you guys talk about this. I just I can't imagine the rush and thrill of discovering a new
Yeah.
species.
Well, I mean, I left out one of the important
Okay.
discoveries also was a Dracula orchid, and to me that was incredible to find one of these flowers that are just amazing for those that may know that genera, but it was almost at 10,000 feet elevation. So getting there, and I remember walking with Stuart and Jorge during one visit, climbing up to try and find some of these Dracula flowers. I mean, it's just yeah, it requires a little bit of having a lot of stamina to go up there and look for these. And the park rangers have been just key to this. I mean, these people that have helped us there, the locals are just unbelievable because they've lived there all their lives. They know the animals. They just for them it's like normal, but for us it's like, hey, this is something that no one has ever seen, and so even more exciting.
So when you're trying to find a new species, is the first thing you do go to the locals and ask them if they've seen it, or what's your strategy?
Well, actually, we go out to do collections and things, and we ask. Some of them are very like one of them is used to be the hunter. He used to be hunting everything, and so he was very good at mammals. For him, placing the camera traps was really amazing because he would find the spot where all the animals would cross. Then you have others that are more into like insects, and others with flowers. So basically, they have helped us. They have an eye that's amazing. So really, I would say that most of the new species have been discovered or they've been a key to discovery of all these new species.
And one of your favorite species, obviously, as a founder of the Hummingbird Conservancy, your work began with one of nature's most iconic pollinators. And how do hummingbirds serve as indicators of ecosystem health? And why are they so central to understanding and protecting biodiversity in Colombia?
Yeah, well, we are fortunate in Colombia to have the largest number of species, probably around 165, give or take. And obviously, they participate in the pollination of flowers. I mean, they are key to having many plants because being in an area with such heavy rains, insects usually do not fly during those periods of times, while hummingbirds can actually fly at any time. And obviously not during the night, but during the day, they fly at any time. And most flowers have evolved different strategies to be pollinated by hummingbirds. They vary in the bill length. They vary in also if it's curved. Some heliconia plants are specifically pollinated by a species of hummingbird, and some other plants are also specifically pollinated by some of the hummingbird species. And obviously, they are tremendously important for the survival of forests.
And another thing I
Oh,
found, oh,
I
yeah.
want to interrupt again. I'm sorry. I'm so excited by this. I keep interrupting. So this is the hummingbird that once upon a time was known from a single, really scruffy looking specimen in the museum. And what was it called, Louise? Something like a dusky star
Dusky,
frontlet.
yeah, Dusky
Dusky.
star frontlet, the
Sort
ugliest
of,
name.
and it might have, it could have been the dull and boring and totally uninteresting star frontlet. It was just this sort of, moth-eaten specimen in the museum. And it was Louise who went out and discovered it, and took photographs of this male. And it's now called the glittering star frontlet. So it's just, I mean, not only was it a discovery, it was the discovery of, one of the world's most beautiful hummingbirds.
It really is beautiful. And a lot of these photos I'm adding are ones you took yourself, Luis, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Which
Is this one did you take this photo or?
Yes, the one that of the one with the bromeliad flower. Yeah.
It's just so cool. You got to be quick to take a photo of a hummingbird doing that. So
You have to be very, very patient.
one thing that I found really interesting when I was looking at the area you're protecting is all these steep slopes. Uh, One thing I love about your work, though, is it's ambitious. You're planning on some of the steepest slopes in South America. What is it actually like to restore cloud forest in these conditions? And what does it take physically and logistically to make it happen?
Yeah, that was one of the big questions when somebody would say, "Oh, this is too steep." But let me tell you, the people that live in those areas are just unbelievable. I mean, they are like goats. I mean, if one tries to climb one of those slopes, one could easily fall. But they just have, the equilibrium, the experience. They carry so much weight, and also we use the traditional mules there to carry the trees up the hills. But it has been amazing how these people have developed like techniques to plant trees. Their knowledge also on the species. It is amazing. I mean, sometimes you feel like you're going to teach them something, and they teach you. I mean, they'll for example say, okay, the way to not lose seeds is we collect them, we put them here, and the way they plant it to get the small little saplings and how to treat them. It's like, well, all of this is not in a book. I mean, it's just the knowledge of the locals that actually make it possible, and how they really they do it so naturally. It's so natural for them that you don't need to hire someone to come outside and teach them. Yeah, you can provide them obviously some of the like I took some of the augers to be able to make more holes rapidly, and they love that. But obviously the auger operator has to be strong, and these guys, they just have an amazing strength. So yeah, without this community, it would be very hard to be able to achieve the goals and all the amount of hectares that we've been able to plant.
And on the note of community, actually, I was just about to ask about that. Why is community involvement so central to your vision of conservation?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I learned from Jorge Orejuela at La Planada was that without the involvement of the community, conservation is not going to succeed. I mean, if the people that live there don't actually have, I mean, they don't first they have to feel as they're part of the project, and this is going to fulfill some of their needs. They're going to be able to survive, and you have to show them that you don't need to cut the tree for it to be like providing an income for them in the future. And so once they realize that what we are doing through the years, that we have been able to show that conservation brings income to them, brings other benefits, clean air, clean water, all these things, then they interiorize these things, and they're able to contribute like they have done so far. And so for me, conservation without community, it's not possible. I mean, you can do it for the short term, but not on the long term. So the only way to have long-term conservation efforts is to involve the community in the whole project. And also, benefits such as, we are like the latest project that we have is installing solar panels in all of the houses of the village, so they don't have to pay electricity. That to them it's incredible. I mean, they love that. Or if we help them with installing this sanitary equipment so that they don't contaminate the river. Those type of things to me are fundamental. And also the part that now has been very key is that some of the questions that arise from this project of restoring forests was, okay, how do we involve the women? So traditionally, the women in these areas basically cook for their husbands and tend for the kids. I mean, you're not going to ask, or they're not going to be happy if you ask them, oh, come and plant the tree in the field. That is something like it's a no-no. So what we said, okay, why don't we ask them to have tree nurseries at their homes? We give them all the equipment they need. We give them the bags, the soil, the fertilizer, and then they're going to be able to tend for the trees. Then we buy them from them, and then the men of the community plant them, and that has been phenomenal. I mean, that has been just amazing because some of the women at the village actually make more money than some of the guys. Now they're a little more independent, and they are the ones that spend money in their homes, spend money on their kids. So it has been transforming. Really, really, that project has been just amazing. We maybe our expectations were different, and now that we have seen the results, it's just unbelievable.
And are these communities that before the solar panels were just using electricity from harmful resources, or what did they have tech electricity before this?
They did have electricity because one of the projects of Antioquia as a department was to take electricity to the farthest places, even if it was like this place very far, there's local electricity. But now what we are looking is for them to provide not only electricity for them, but also returning electricity to the system so that incomes also comes to them, and also preventing you know, like for cooking and all these things, this is something really good because the idea is to avoid cutting the wood or
It's
cutting trees for cooking.
it's cool to see how you're able to kind of stimulate the economy there. I wasn't aware of all this economic growth that conservation your project has caused. That's fascinating. And I was kind of going to transition here to because I know you spent countless hours in the forest. Can you share a favorite story or moment with wildlife or people that really captures why this work matters to you on a personal level?
Yeah, I think to me one of the most unbelievable stories was with Jorge Jaramillo, which is one of our park rangers. And when we were studying this insect parasitic wasps, and we had a collection of, I would say, I don't know, at that time maybe it could have been 2,000 wasps that needed to be mounted. And so the Brazilians came with a technique showing Jorge how to mount one of the wasps. And to me, it was like maybe spending, I don't know, 5 minutes to mount each wasp. So I was like, oh, this is going to be crazy. How are we going to mount all these wasps on the collection? So we left Jorge alone. We come later, and then Jorge has over 100 of them mounted. And they're like, whoa, how do you do that? And he explains how he mounts the wasps and everything. And they're like, oh my God, this is for a publication, for a scientific paper. Jorge, what university did you go and study at? And Jorge has second grade education. I mean, that to me just made me realize it's like how intelligent really these people are. I mean, you sometimes believe like, okay, you went to school, you have all this, you have your PhD, and so you now have intelligence. No, that really showed me that these guys can actually be able to create. I would say with like to me, it just reminds me I don't know if some of the older here will remember MacGyver, or MacGyver. That
Driver,
he's able
yeah.
to with very few things, they're able to do amazing stuff because not. I mean, there's no paradigms in their minds, so they're able to really resolve problems. And for whatever reasons, these guys to me are just unbelievable. When I have a problem, I don't even show them like, oh, let's do it this way. No, it's like, what do you think we should do? And they solve it. It's incredible. So to me, that's a humbling experience, and that's one of the most wonderful stories that I can think of.
Yeah, it's good. So a lot of people there just are smart from growing up in their environment and figuring out ways.
Yep.
Yeah, that is something remarkable.
I think one of the things that I love, and Louise has talked a little bit about this, is it really is a sort of the whole community is involved. You showed a picture earlier of the school with the beautiful paintings of birds and flowers on it. When I first went up there, that school had been shot up by violence. So they've now sort of taken over this school and painted it to celebrate the biodiversity around them. But you know the women and the kids are collecting the seeds and they're germinating them. The men are loading those seedlings, the little baby trees, arbolitas, onto the back of mules and trundling them up the long road to the canyon where Louise is reforesting. I mean, it's an extraordinary sense of community when you're there. It's very exciting. And then, Uriel, who was the poacher, who was the hunter, who is now a very important member of the team. I'm always thrilled to see him. He always gives me a huge hug when I see him. There really is an incredible sense of community there.
Oh, you
Yes.
work with a former poacher that is now, I've heard, I think I heard Stuart talk a little bit about that story. If I'm not mistaken, there was a poacher that was poaching just because he needed the money, and you were able
No,
to.
in regards to Uriel, basically they were just hunting deer and hunting everything, obviously to feed the
Oh,
families.
okay, yeah, this is
I
just.
mean that's just a necessity there. And but then one time I remember talking to him when he used to take the sugar water to the hummingbird feeders that we installed, and I recall when he would walk to the hummingbirds, to the feeders, and then hummingbirds coming and posing themselves on his cap. Uh, and he would say like, "Oh, I'm always so sorry that we used to be well ignorant and stupid at hunting these animals." I said, "No, you did it out of necessity, but now you realize the importance of the animals and restoring the ecosystems, and he's just thrilled then, and he's always asking to learn more about this, and I'm just so happy when you see that a hummingbird is gonna come to you, and he's gonna post yourself on you because you have very good energy. If not, a hummingbird wouldn't do that. And so I just see these people just have the greatest energy, and they mean no harm. It's just that sometimes when they have to hunt an animal, it's just out of necessity, and that is understandable. But now through the years, and him watching, the deer coming back, the pacarana coming back, the pigeons, the guans, and it's just incredible to see the number of animals that have returned back because of what they're doing. And so, and he's so happy when an ocelot is photographed by one of the camera traps, or the spectacle bear that comes to them. It's incredible the number of animals now that are captured by the camera traps.
Yeah, I've seen some. It's unbelievable. And this is a photo from another part of Colombia that was deforested. Deforestation, cattle ranching, and climate change all put pressure on the Andes. What are some of the biggest threats you're up against right now?
Well, to me, the biggest threat really is climate change. I mean, the storms that are being formed now and the amount of rain that is falling in a short period of time can really cause a lot of havoc. And we actually, 2 years ago, the village was almost wiped out by 110 millimeters. That's probably, let's see, I'm going to try and do the math, but it's 30, 40 inches of rain within the span of 40 minutes. So, as you were able, probably in the States, to witness what happened recently in Texas, that's what happens. And we had like 45 landslides, and it was a dangerous situation that fortunately nobody was killed, but definitely that really makes you realize that climate change is probably the biggest threat that is going to come in the next years. So I mean, people are realizing that cattle ranching is not economically feasible in these areas. Uh, and obviously now there's no wood cutting, but climate change to me it's what's gonna really cause us to pay attention to what's gonna come in the future.
Luis and Stewart, when a flood happens in an area like yours, like a major flood like that, what are some of the consequences?
Well, in our case, obviously you have that many landslides that just basically bring down a lot of the pristine forests, and obviously it will recover, but does definitely damage. I mean, if I look at it from a positive point of view, is like okay, there's restoration, there's natural restoration. You can witness how forests come back. I mean, this ended up being like a lunar type. Once the flood came through, it's like there's only rocks, and now 2 years after that, pretty much everything is back covered with forest, and then the plants and trees are growing. So it's like okay, it's like they don't need us. We do our best, but in the end, obviously, nature is going to be there and it's going to prevail, and we just need to give it a little push so that everything comes back to normal. And this stitching back together all these forest patches, as Stuart has taught us, that is the important thing, and being able to provide these corridors for the animals to go to other areas, genetic flow, all this, and that's really important. But if I mean nature by itself can really restore itself if one allows it to do that.
One thing that I found really interesting that you just said about restoring and connecting corridors, which Stewart is an expert on. What have you seen from connecting a forest? What have you noticed?
Oh no, just the animals coming back, and they come back fast. I mean, you can see them. Just once you provide a little bit of cover, they will be going through areas that before it was impossible. Because obviously, animals are afraid of sometimes crossing these areas because of well, I mean, bears are incredibly intelligent. When you look at them, how they hate the trap cameras. So I know they don't like areas that are open because obviously they're in danger of being shot at in the past. I'm sure that's already in their DNA. But yeah, just providing a little bit of tree cover, fauna starts coming back quickly.
And when you're able to walk from, if you're an animal and you're able to walk from your forest now with the tree cover to another one, have you noticed any of the connections that you made provide resources that one forest wouldn't typically have that it now has because of the connection?
Well, to me, the most important thing in this respect is basically the gene flow of animals being able to now to connect with others that populations were isolated. You see that with birds. You see that especially with mammals. So that to me is key. Being able to reconnect this forest so that animals are not get they don't get isolated into islands.
Conservation scientists know the answer to why the chicken crossed the road. The chicken crossed the road to meet other chickens. And so you've got to give, you've got to create corridors for the bears to meet other bears, and all that kind of stuff. Um, uh, Andy, I know from many previous experiences with these wonderful blogs that we're doing, that we often go on too long and we don't give people chance to ask questions. So do you want to open this up to questions from the floor?
Yes, please. If anyone has any questions, type it in the chat. We'll get to them. And I could ask a question in the meantime, and people type in the chat all your questions and we'll get to them. And Luis, in the meantime, what gives you hope, despite all these challenges? And please, everyone, we invite you to ask questions, anything that's on your mind.
Well, I think the main thing is looking at the young generation that's coming, that's becoming more conscious. I mean, you can see locally here in Cali, we have every year what's called the Bird Fair, and seeing that more and more kids are assisting to these events and watching them grow, being in touch with nature, just brings me back to my young years as a naturalist. And now when I see that, it's like, okay, it's great that more people are getting involved, and especially the young kids that are getting involved. To me, that gives me at least a little bit of expectation of that the future could be not as bad as I as I feel that it can be. But yeah, I mean, the important thing is for more people to be involved in conservation.
And on that note, if you, Stuart, you want to give a little pitch while we let everyone type their questions about saving nature and why it's important to donate to
So,
us.
as I explained, this is one of our longest running saving nature projects. We were attracted to this area because it is just so incredibly rich in species and hummingbirds and orchids and everything else. But we also realized that the forests that remain are fragmented. And this was a particular case in point. There was an area of about 100 square kilometers, that's, I don't know, 30 square miles or something like that, that was completely isolated by the cattle pastures that had cleared the forest in the lowlands. And we thought that that was a very, very ambitious a project to try and acquire that land and reforest it. And we've now done that. I mean, the reforestation is still taking place. But this year we were able to or help Louise buy the land, and so the village, as I've explained, is acquiring the trees and planting them. So we have really connected a very important piece of the Western Andes cloud forest to the other forests. And so I hope you'll all go to our website and you look at the maps. I spent a lot of time studying the maps to make sure that our projects are, reconnecting nature. But we have broken nature. We have torn the fabric of forests, and being able to repair them, to mend them, is very exciting. And I hope you'll support us in that effort. So anyway, Andy, I can see there's some questions there, so we should try and address them.
Yes, Bernie wants to know how can I help?
I I have a question.
Go
Hi,
for it.
Luis. Hi,
Hello.
Luis. My name is Suchi. We met last year in Cali. I get the
Yeah,
hat.
yes.
I love the hat. Um, we also went to Doña Dona for the Andean Cock of the Rock last year.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and because it was during the COP area, so many ecotourism traveled with us to see this wonderful bird species. But when I was in the mountains, the breeding ground is right in front of us, and the agricultural land is right behind us, like right behind our birding blind. Um, uh, for uh, for some months, I was telling people that ecotourism is helping conservation because it's well, how do I frame this question? It's the birding tourism industry right now. Is it a driving force of conservation, or as people are destroying, like expanding agriculture to the edges of just the remaining the tourism places?
Well, it really depends on some of the areas, but to
Mm-hmm.
me, ecotourism to me is driving conservation because many families are starting to depend on creating areas, keeping the natural areas for providing, places to see birds. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to me, birding is probably one of the key elements in conservation in Colombia. I mean, the tourism it attracts and the number of areas now that are available to see rare species that are being fed, instead of doing playbacks, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually harming the birds, they're actually putting stations for feeding them and keeping them as natural as possible. And so that actually makes people more conscious of conservation because birds are beautiful, birds are everywhere, and so that helps everything else. Even though some of these things are not noticeable, like when you look at a small little bug, which is
Mm-hmm.
also very important, but birds are just a great umbrella for conservation.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I got Slacked a question. It says, what makes Colombia so rich in biodiversity?
Okay, well, Colombia has three Andes mountains, and obviously we're close to the equator. And just the fact that you can go from altitudes from 0 to, let's see, close to uh, probably 18,000 feet elevation to snow-capped mountains, that just provides so many eco zones. I mean, just so many habitats. And therefore, the number of endemics, the number of just this number of species are just unbelievable because all these small little patches of forest that you find can contain, even within a mountain range, at every valley, every sort of river or stream can contain different species. It's just amazing at how the biodiversity has created so many habitats in Colombia.
Thank you. If Unless anyone else has any questions, I want to thank Luis and Stuart and all of you for coming this Wednesday to join our chat. I learned so much, and if you want to donate or help Luis's project, you could scan the QR code or go to savingnature.com and click on our Columbia project and press donate. Thank you so much for coming, and this will be recorded and posted shortly. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for organizing this, Sandy. Louise, thanks so
Yes.
much for doing this, for sharing the incredible enthusiasm you have for this spectacular part of the world. And thank you everybody for coming and listening to us.
Well,
You have a great evening, everyone.
yes. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much. Appreciate it
Bye-bye.
very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Andy. Thank you,
Thank
Luis.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.